This week, the Art of Culinary Spaces ventures to Boulder, Colorado, where Hapa Sushi Grill and Sake Bar has relocated to a larger, more prominent location. Rika Design Studios tackled the challenge of converting a former brew pub into a vibrant sushi restaurant with meticulous attention to the chef experience, creating a custom-designed sushi counter. Join me in welcoming FCSI members Philip Landgraf and Jeremy Kittelson as they reveal how precise measurements and ergonomic considerations created a space that balances aesthetic appeal with high-volume operational demands. Well, welcome to the show. We're here today to talk about the Hapa Sushi Grill and Sake Bar in Boulder, Colorado. Phil, Jeremy, thanks for joining the show. As we have with all the other episodes here for season 3 and season 2 and even season 1, I like to start off every episode with the same question to kind of learn from consultants where they get their business leads from. So the first question to you guys is, how did this project come about for you guys and Rika?
Yeah, I'll start off with that one. And so the project came in through an architect client of ours that brought Hapa to the table. And Hapa has multiple locations here in Denver, and so they've done design through dealers. They've done it, through trying to do it themselves as well, and they've had some mixed results. So they were definitely hesitant about going with a consultant. But we definitely reassured them that this is what we do every day, and that we're to be their client advocate throughout the process. And so built the confidence with the Hapa team and started from there.
Nice. Now, the other thing I'm always curious about too is, because I hear horror stories from you guys all the time for all these years that I've been executive director, and that is, what was the project's timeline and budget plan in the beginning? And I don't need exact numbers and such, but I'm always curious as to how much it was in the beginning or what it was like in the beginning versus did it have a lot of change before the end, or were you lucky enough that this is one of those unicorns that actually kind of followed along what it wanted to do?
Well, we always wish it was a unicorn, right? But unfortunately, this was a really, it was a tight timeline. They had come across a great opportunity with being able to take a space. This was on Pearl Street in Boulder, Colorado. So they property had opened up across the way, and they wanted to move in quickly. And of course, as taking over different leases, that's all money. So we had a timeline, but we had a great plan. Our architect partner had laid out a good strategy for that. And, the Hapa team, they're very, very savvy and knew what we wanted. So we could really move quickly to make sure we did that and accomplished our timeline.
I would just add that, with any existing space that they were taking over, it was an existing restaurant that they were taking over. And so there are definitely some challenges along the way that did delay the schedule a little bit. This was also still in the tail end of COVID, or maybe even in the heart of it. So supply chain issues, timing, a lot of things were challenges along the way. So they didn't exactly open on time, but we got it done as quickly as possible. That's for sure.
Well, now that you bring it up, Phil, it is one of those, they renovated a former brew pub. This is the restaurant they kind of took over. And then you're taking a brew pub and turning it into a high volume sushi bar. So that must have had some challenges. So what can each of you tell me a little bit about some of the biggest challenges and surprises during this transformation that you encountered and had to overcome?
Sure. Well, the biggest one that I think I was involved with, and Jeremy can share more, but it was, luckily the brew pub had a fair amount of cooking with it, storage, etc. So the infrastructure was pretty good, but the sushi bar wanted a cooking component there so they could broil some of the semi-cooked seafood items, some of their sushi rolls, etc. And so adding a hood in a multi-story building with already low ceilings was a real challenge. There were conflicting. There's existing piping for fire suppression systems, some other electrical conduits and things that we had to work around. So to get very creative with the hood and find a pathway out of the building. Luckily, it was not a type 1 hood, it was type 2. So we were able to coordinate that with the engineers and get it out there successfully.
Nice.
Yeah, and along with that, one of the biggest surprises is this particular space sat over a parking structure, and there was a huge cement slab. I believe it was about 5 feet wide and about 2 feet thick that ran through where we wanted to relocate an ice machine. So it made floor penetrations quite challenging there. So we had to work around that. We found that out late in the game, and had to pivot there, but we were able to get that change done too.
You also had to redo the kitchen, obviously, and not always, but in this instance, Chef Aaron Nakamichi was closely involved in the kitchen design, helping you guys, because he's a very hands-on chef from what I've read. Can you share more about how his vision shaped the layout and the functionality of the space that you guys did?
Yeah, absolutely. Chef was great to work with. Again, really very knowledgeable about how he wanted the flow of each particular sushi station. I mean, the ergonomics that went into that, the flow. I mean, there was no wasted space or just a great flow there. And even to the counter heights, they weren't traditional heights. He wanted them a little bit higher, making it for a more comfortable workspace for his staff working there. But again, it's always great to get that direct feedback and be able to just give them the space that they know they're going to be the most successful in. So it was a real pleasure to work with him.
In the first part of that too, Jeremy actually went to 2 or 3 other restaurants that they already had, and with Chef, and said, this is what's working here, this is what isn't. We don't like how this worked out. Like Jeremy said, it's very specific to the height, depth, width of all the different sushi stations. And then also they do a ton of to-go business, whether it's third-party delivery or pickup, because it's so popular. And so they have a pretty massive area for to-go orders that connects directly to the sushi chef area, and all the ergonomics, like Jeremy said, the shelving, all that was very well planned to make sure that they could maximize their staging storage for the amount of to-go orders they're expecting.
Yeah, I read about that. And I want to ask that. I want to ask about the to-go order takeout area a little bit later too, because that was something that was very it's becoming more and more prevalent in a lot of the places, and especially this season, talking to consultants in the Project Showcase, it seems to be a pattern, if you will, of places that are having a more robust takeout, and that creates its own challenges. I want to ask a little bit later, but Jeremy, you brought up something that I really have a question about too, and that talks about ergonomics. Now, not always do you consider ergonomics when you're designing a kitchen, obviously. Some restaurants, some food service operations don't really think much about it, but obviously they did. Walk us through the ergonomics and the layout considerations that went into designing the sushi counters, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, in general, just the sushi counter is such a heart of their operation. I mean, that's where you have that great sushi chef guest experience that's happening, and guests are able to see that magic happening. So making sure that visual connection between the guest and the sushi chef, it started there, making sure that those heights were really good. And then, like I said, we created with Chef each a distinct sushi station on the counter. They were about 6 feet long. They were actually 37 inches high versus maybe more your traditional 34 to 36 inch high. Each dipping well and shelf had to be properly placed. Each sushi counter or display cooler had to be centered perfectly, so that again there was no wasted seconds here, and the sushi chefs would be able to get whatever type of fish or garnishes they were having without ever really having to move. And that was a really critical piece to their puzzle, because they do have big restaurants. They have a large sushi counter, and then the restaurant's large. They're doing high volume, and as we talked about the to-go aspect too. So that was all pennies, seconds, and inches that we were able to capitalize on with that design.
How does the guest interaction with those chefs at all those counters, how does that influence your front of the house design and back of the house design, the finishes, everything that goes along with that? Because it is a very personal thing when you sit at a sushi chef's table and you get to watch everything. It's nobody's in the back making something for you. You get to watch everything up front. So how how did you guys take into consideration those guest interactions to do all of it, from design to finishes to front of the house seating?
As you said, that connection is really important, and so you typically have a lower seating area, that's ADA compliant, but then you've got those higher working areas, as Jeremy mentioned, and so it's really like looking at that in section view and making sure all this works. The reach is really important too. So a sushi chef can put something either over the counter right in front of the guest or on top of the counter so the guest can take it off of there. All that was taken in consideration. And as Jeremy said, the chef, he's got the whole thing worked out. And so we were very, very specific at that. Even to the point where for the entire model, I think it was critical that we did everything in Revit and did 3D walkthroughs with him to make sure like we had shelves in the right locations, that we weren't having conflicts, having the right openings to the to-go counters or to the back area, because they do produce tempuras and soups and things like that in the back that need to make it to the sushi counter. And so all that was very meticulously planned. And I think the meeting we had with Aaron where we did the 3D walkthrough, he really helped him to visualize and really point out areas that we thought we had right but didn't. And so we were able to correct that before anything got into production.
Yeah.
Well, and what also, while this was a renovation, they have multiple locations and they're looking to grow. So this was, with each location, they want to get better for their next location. So
Right.
It was a great opportunity to really take what they've learned, the lessons learned from their previous projects, implement them here, and then be able to move them on to the next project as well.
Very good. Now we sort of touched on a little bit earlier, but also kind of brushed it over for right now. I want to bring it back to it. And that is, this restaurant operates on 2 levels, right? So how did you address the flow of staffing, food, equipment, everything that comes from delivery all the way up to being served to the customer, for when you're having 2 levels to deal with?
So luckily, all the back of house spaces and the sushi counter are all on one level, and it's really just a good portion of the seating that's at a different level. And so,
Okay.
just really working out the ADA there. That was much more on the architectural side, and then also the visual aspect of it. So because from the higher side, you're kind of looking into an area that looks like it has a lot lower ceiling. I think the architect and our interior design did a great job to make those 2 spaces feel like one, even though they are on 2 different levels.
Now, going back to the takeout business, they do have a very robust takeout. So how did you approach the takeout assembly area and to meet new customer demands? Because now you've got another space. But you had the opportunity now to learn from what they had before. I'm sure Chef had a part of it, and front of the house did too, helping you understand what needed to change from the old location to now the new. You've got an opportunity here. So what did you do to kind of make it easier for that on-demand takeout business? And because again, you need a new assembly area, and you've got an area where they got to come pick it up.
Well, I think it really starts for a lot of restaurant operations from COVID, when you had to switch your model to a to-go model. Everybody learned and was awakened to this wow, we have a new revenue stream that we can capitalize on. And certainly sushi is, and that style of cuisine really lends itself to being able to be taken out and enjoyed, especially if you can get that delivered to your house in under 30 minutes. So really, takeout in restaurants used to be kind of an afterthought. It wasn't a real forefront of what you were doing. Where this approach really became a design element that was going to help them maximize revenue. Again, it became another outlet that they were having within their existing restaurant. So really making the attention to treat it just like any other area of the kitchen or bar that you're having that is set up correctly. It's not just some to-go boxes and chopsticks and garnishes somewhere. I'm like, everything had its place. There was a pass-through window that made it so that the food could be produced in the back of the house and on the sushi counter, and having that direct connection. So it was really a seamless experience for, then that expediter or front of the house to be able to package that up quickly, get it out to wherever it was going. So I think really just changing it into an intentional space rather than just hey, we're doing some to-go food.
The only thing I would add is just maximizing vertical storage, because you have all those containers and everything to deal with. So, looking at all of our under counter storage, and then 2 or 3 tier shelves above, to try and maximize all the different containers, because they've got everything from soup to tempura to noodle dishes, and then obviously the sushi. So you've got a lot of different container types, a lot of different garnishes that go on there, and so really setting up that station. Similar concept to the sushi area, where everything has its place with minimal movement. And again, I think that 3D visualization really helped us to maximize that.
How did you guys, Hapa's you've been around, they got a very strong reputation in town. How were you able to maintain kind of their vibrant, energy-filled atmosphere that they've always been known for? How were you able to maintain that throughout the design stage and, build out stage?
I think that starts at the core of what we do. I mean, we always say that we're in the communication business. We like to say that we're great listeners and that we understand their vision. We want to be collaborative and supportive in our process. I mean, certainly we're here to offer our expertise and tell them if we think that something isn't going to work right. We want to be strong guides to them throughout the process, but what they do is important. They've spent a lot of time developing their menu. They've spent a lot of time developing the vibe that they want in their restaurant. So we're here to help them bring that to light. And I think it, as Phil had mentioned earlier, a lot of collaboration, a lot of making sure that we were saying and making sure that they felt heard, and that we were really picking up what they wanted to have done in their operations.
Nice.
And I think physically too, it was always a focus of, that sushi counter has to be the focal point when you walk in the restaurant. And so no matter whether it was better or worse, I mean, it's probably in the best place it can be, but, we had to make that the focus of it. And so, everything draws your eye, your attention, all the interior design elements, the lighting, all that really helps you to draw your attention to that sushi counter. And then obviously you get to explore the other areas of the restaurant as you walk through. But that was really a main focus from beginning to end.
So I'm curious to know from each of you, since you've been doing this a long time, but with this one in particular and any others that you think of, what's that feeling that goes through your mind and your body the first time you're able to walk through the finished concept and you see people interacting the way that you envisioned it, or maybe not envisioned it, whatever it might be. Tell me about that feeling of walking through this place the first time after it opened.
Well, I'll start off. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm still not sure that my wife and daughter really understand what it is I do. But when you take them to a restaurant that they can actually go in and enjoy, like, to me, that's such a special feeling of like, hey, I helped design this. We helped to create it. We had a hand in it. Yeah, we're not the chef or didn't develop the menu, but like, we help craft the overall experience of what's going on in here. And, we get a lot of projects that are higher education or sports and entertainment or things that aren't in Colorado. Most of our business is not in Colorado. And so I can't always take people there, but when you have something that's tangible, that's close to you, and you can take people there and say, hey, look at the stuff that we've done. That's such a satisfying feeling. And even Jeremy, being a former client of ours, was culinary director with a firm that we worked with, and helped create another restaurant here. And that's how we actually built that relationship. And now Jeremy working with us is just an amazing experience.
So Jeremy, walk me through, you've been on both sides. You've been the operator and open place, and now you've been the consultant that's helped put it together and opened it. Tell me the difference, if there is any, tell me the differences that go through your experience feelings when you go through that first opening.
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. A big question I get is, do you miss being in the kitchen? Do you miss being a chef? And I think that the way that I always come back with that is I'm still affecting the guest experience. I'm still being able to affect the working environment that the people that I used to care about and still do so much. I cared so much for the teams that I worked with, and being able to give them a good place to work in that is functioning well. And I always, I still think like a chef. That's a mantra that I have for myself. I don't want to just think like, I'm putting things down on a pen and paper. I want to visualize what it's like to be in that space each and every day. And if I'm satisfied, then I hope it is. And much like Phil outlined, I share that happiness and, a sense of job well done. But I got to tell you, I'm always second guessing and trying to take lessons learned of things that maybe we could have done better, and bringing that to the next project, because that's what we're always striving to do is how can we continue to evolve and get better and turn things into the next best experience.
Oh, I can tell you in 20 some years of being involved with FCSI as a staff person, I don't know that I've ever met a consultant that says they were absolutely 100% happy with what they did. Like, there's always something they see later on, whether it's something that they could or could not control. Like you said, you've got concrete that you couldn't get through. There's a hood you have got to move around. There's always something, it seems like, even when you're building brand new, you run into some other areas. I don't know if I've ever met a consultant that feels 100%. I would bet you, though, Jeremy, you don't miss the 100-degree kitchens or the 85, 90-hour work weeks anymore. So,
yeah, the work-life balance is certainly better, and this is a very exciting new challenge. I love the coordination process, the client-facing process, and you're right. No project is ever going to be perfect. There's going to be challenges along the way, and dealing with adversity and problem solving is certainly what we do. And that is, again, a similar thing that I got to do as a chef. I mean, you eat problems for lunch and you wake up and thinking about how you can solve them. So, that is a similarity for sure.
Nice. Well, that's all the questions I've got for you guys today. Before I let you go, how can the public find out more about each of you and Ricca Design Studios?
I'd say the easiest way is to go to our website, www.ricca.com. All of our contact information's there. Emails, phone numbers are all there, but please reach out to us anytime. We'd love to help you.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Art of Culinary Spaces. We hope this conversation has sparked your creativity and inspired new ideas within the world of food service design and planning. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on all of our future podcasts. Stay tuned for our next episode when we explore another groundbreaking project and exceptional design from FCSI members that are transforming the culinary landscape.